Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Live Well podcast. I have a repeat exciting guest. I have been looking forward to having her back on since the last conversation, and honestly, all week. I think every time I see a number, I basically think of you. If it's like an angel number, I'm like, what would Tiffany say? So, without further ado, Tiffany, welcome back to the show, and actually, welcome to the rebrand of the show because we are now the Beyond Limits podcast.
I know. I love it. When it came out, I was so excited. So excited. I think I messaged you straight away. I was like, I love this. It's so aligned.
So for those of you, or for the people who don't know you and haven't listened to the first episode, can you give us a brief introduction to like who you are and numerology and your genius of it all?
Oh, thank you. I am Tiffany Dawn. I am a numerologist, second generation. My mother discovered numerology when I was 8, and I'm long since past that age. I have always had it incorporated into my life. I have utilized it to my benefit. I have utilized it to my detriment. I have leaned in, I've leaned out. So all the things that we do in our spiritual evolution. And now I incorporate that as well with my mind, body, spirit release, energetic clearing, and I'm a high practitioner as well.
Wonderful.
That is me.
So we're going to leave the first episode we did down below so that we don't like repeat everything about going through all the numbers from scratch like we did kind of like the first time and really understanding.
Yes.
But I already have so many questions prepped. Which direction do I want to go first? Okay, we're going to go this direction first. I think it was maybe on your Instagram, maybe on a podcast. I don't know. You were talking about how the end of this year, or the end, because we're in November when we're recording this. I mean, you can listen to this anytime, but coming to the end of the year, it's a preview of the next year numerologically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, numerologically, yes.
Last call of the day. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And I feel like for me, I'm loving it. I'm loving my end because I'll be in a 4-year next year. And like I said, we dive into different years in the previous episode with Tiffany.
Yes.
But I want you to dive into kind of like explaining that. And like I know the transition into the first few months. Basically, what I heard in the other podcast, I want you to share with all of our listeners.
Okay.
That transition energy and like how people, what that could maybe bring up from people in that transition energy and how to really maybe move through that more smoothly, perhaps, if that makes sense.
Yes, it absolutely does. So what I was speaking about was how once October hits, we begin blending energies. And even my last email to the community, talked a little bit about the blended energies. Transitions go very slow with numerology. It takes 5 months to cycle out of 1 year and into the next. Every October, your personal month is the energetic that your next personal year is going to be. Okay. So if you're heading into a 4-year, October was a 4 personal month for you. And then you have November being a 5, December a 6, and then January you bounce back to a 5. And then February you go to a 6. And then finally in March, you're all the way into your new year. So there's an ease of conversation about how the end of year and the beginning of the year feel wonky. You may have a lot of inspiration and have no get up and get after it, just full of ideas, full of excitement, and it's all just somehow you just trip yourself and all of a sudden you're just sitting in it instead of doing something about it. And it's beautifully timed when we're seeing all the relatives that could trigger you, all of the people that you never really see very often. You get overbooked. You allow yourself to get overbooked. I do not, but many do. And so you have this whole stress. The days are shorter, it just kind of mounts up. And when you're excessively stressed, you're overscheduled, it can be a challenge to be your best self, which doesn't really support non-triggering environments either. So when you have just that as a whole going on for every single person, and universally it does the same thing, you know, the whole world is transitioning from one energy to the other. So being able to be really aware of your numbers will allow you to be able to be more present so you can navigate it well. So for you, going into that 4 year, being in October was your 4. The very first thing that would have hit you was probably, since you were in a 3 year, heading into the 4, you start probably mapping out a lot of plans. And it's just a great way for you to be very creative for those making that transition. It would be a really beautiful time to really map out your year because you would have a very good creative flow to it. And if you were planning launches or programs or personal life things too, you know, great to be able to be planning big events and transitions in your personal life. That'd be a beautiful thing for you to have done in a 4 month. In a 5 month, you start seeing some changes, but you're still in that 3 energetic. So you have a lot of creativity, a lot of communication driven change. You see how they're kind of cogs in that wheel? And then you start pulling into the 6 month, next month, which is responsibilities. With responsibilities, I clap to it every single time. Boundary, boundary, boundary. Know what you need to be responsible for and know what you don't need to be responsible for. And then you start moving into that new year. So you have a little vibe of it in October, a little stronger in November, stronger even in December, a little faded out in January, a little bit more faded out in February. And then you feel fresh once March hits. And that's spring, where everybody seems to like get their go on, you know? So that's always the fun about it. And what's neat with the whole bounce back is that whereas October gives you that little glimmer of next year, December will give you a glimmer into February. So you can sort of tie them together because they're the same energetic. So you can see in December if something is kind of gnawing at you and tugging at you, it's a really good sign to deal with it so that you could maybe make a completion on something related to it by the time February is there. So you can just sort of put it to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, numerologically again, if like I'll use my example, if in like my 3 year I didn't maybe like grow or like do learn all the lessons, if you will that then make your next year like more denser, or is it like, oh, it won't come around again until the next 3 year? Like, do
No,
you know what I
it
mean?
keeps
Like,
after you. It
okay.
keeps after you. But the thing is that it won't necessarily look the same because a 3 energetic is very different than a 4. So what could have been navigated in a more communicative, creative, more feminine energy would then have to be learned in a more structured, more masculine energy to finish
Yeah.
off. So it's basically like, okay, I told you how to get this done. You apparently don't learn visually. So let's learn this way instead. Like it's just trying to navigate the best way you receive it. So you may get a little nugget here and a little nugget there, but it may take you a few different angles of its approach to really get all of the juice out of that lemon.
So there are like specific lessons and or like whether it's shadows, lessons, limitations, I'm not sure what word you would say for each number.
There's always going to be a positive and a negative for any energetic, just as in astrology, or, you know, there's always going to be hurdles to it. So in a
Can
three
we go
year,
over those? Can we go over like the main hurdles of like 1 through 9? Like I know last time we talked about like all the positive, and I want to know
yeah,
like, all right, the main
the shadow
hurdles if you're
side.
going into 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, like whatever. These are the hurdles to
Yeah.
look out for in 2025. Because sometimes I feel if you know these things ahead of time, it's almost like you can work through them because you're like
Mhm.
on the lookout. Like I know for me,
Yeah.
this year was all about communication, communication.
Mhm.
And I knew it. So when it came out, I was like, yes, yes. And I found that really helped me this year. I'm like, I have nailed communication. People have told me like your voice, the way you communicate. I'm like, yes, because I'm in a 3-year and I
Mhm.
freed the hell out of this year.
Yeah, and you really leaned into it. And so as you moved through each of those years, you were probably quite aligned with the energetic of each month. Because if you're in the flow of one, you can't be in flow with your personal year and completely out of flow with all the months within it. You can have some little bumps. I mean, you get little trips. That's what life is about, right? But you wouldn't necessarily, you can't just be one in left field and one in right field. It just does not work that way. So, yes, very well done. Okay, so when you're looking at the more challenging aspects to the number, with one being real leader, independent, and individuation, what you could have challenges with are being, well, what I would say would be too big for your britches. You could be a real, I'm above you leader instead of a guide and coach. You could also end up you could overcorrect your individuation, which could go a couple of different ways. One, you could really over exaggerate it and be so unique that nobody really knows what to do with you. They don't know how to take you at all. And so you wouldn't be able to be productive and be able to make forward movement on whatever those big and bold ideas are. Or you could completely de-individuate and say, you know what, I'm not comfortable being unique and being ahead of the bunch. I'd rather just like lay low and let me just sort of chameleon in. And that would prevent growth in many aspects because it's not what the number is meant for. A 2 is really about not pushing to make things happen and how to really partner and cooperate. It's a very synchronistic sign. It's when you're doing the work and keeping your eyes and ears open so that when those aligned opportunities that go along with what you're working on show themselves, you can raise your hand real quick and grab hold of it. So where you could go wrong is trying to make it work, just putting way too much effort into it. And in those times, people may feel like they're making progress. The challenge is that it typically falls apart because it's not meant to be forced through. This is not where you boss up. It's not where you boss up. The 3, since it is more really about communication, you could hold back your voice and not lean into how you uniquely express yourself and how you uniquely approach the joys in your life. You could turn your back to that and you would have challenges. With the 4 energetic, where you would get in trouble is if you tried to skip steps because it's your work number. It is the plan your work, work the plan. And if you try to wing it and just go through the whole year that way, you'll struggle. You may have some moments. They say what? Blind squirrels find an acorn every once in a while. Like you could make it work, but it's not going to be one of those really productive years. Change is the number for 5. And I'm so intimately connected with the 5 because it's my life path. So I am well versed in the caveats of that energetic. And the bottom line is that it's about constructive freedom. Those of us who really have that energy really do want a lot of change. New people, new places, new things. They're the travelers, the wanderers, the escapists. And even for someone like myself who isn't doing all of the traveling and wandering, what have you, I like change within my day. It may be sort of the same, but not. I got to have something a little different. The problem is that when you really set yourself up for that level of freedom, there can be a lot of enticement that could undermine you. And when I mean enticement, when you're looking at someone who really wants new experiences, we're always kind of wanting the dopamine hit, you can get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
too much of a good thing is not always a good thing. So you have to be able to reel that in. So you could kind of get in deep. That would be the dark side of that, not using those freedoms constructively. This 6 energetic, responsibilities, family, career, boundaries. So you can get yourself in trouble when you blow off your responsibilities to that inner circle, and even more so if you become a yes ma'am, yes sir. The doormat factor is really big because, like I'd said, the responsibility issue, you have to be able to know what you're meant to be responsible for and what you're not. So if you're taking on the responsibility of everything, you will stumble and fall, and you're not doing anybody any favors. You're not being able to like lift them up, which is innately what the 6 energy is about that nurturing of those in those environment. So you could hurdle there. The 7 energetic, it's known for its spirituality, but really what it's about is introspection and study. It's where you really want to do your deep dive. It's where you want to retreat, to hear your own voice so that you know that the direction that you're moving to is truly and uniquely meant for you and aligned for you. And obviously the caveat would be really leaning hard into your extroverted self and blowing off the responsibility to say no from time to time. You know, it's not a requirement to go into a cave and just emerge 10, 11 months later. That's not what it is. But it is about being able to, hopefully having successfully navigated boundaries in the last month, the last year, the last month, you could set those up for yourself so that you have those times to integrate your deepest learnings and curiosities. The 8-month, everybody talks about the manifestation number, and it is, but it's really about the manifestation of power. And so you will really get yourself in trouble if you misuse your power. Bottom line. The 9 is about humanitarianism. And if you are approaching activities, tasks, career growth, whatever it is, with what's in it for me undercurrent, it won't go well. It's a real selfless number. So those would be the darker energies for that.
So I know I asked year, but I heard you say month. So we could also apply these as the energies for personal months as
Yes.
well within the context of our
Yep.
year.
Absolutely. Okay. Yep. Because the positive and negative within a personal month is the same as a personal year. It's just a personal year. You've got that for a whole handful of months versus the precision of a month. So that's where you feel it, like the intensity of it.
I remember thinking about you in October, and I was just like, work the plan, work the plan. So like
Mm-hmm.
next year, I was gonna be thinking about you. I'm like, work the plan, work the plan.
Yeah.
Make sure the plan, don't wing it. Work the plan.
Yes, absolutely. Work it. Yep.
And so I really find, well, now that everyone knows this, honestly, take notes. I remember I took notes in the first episode, and I found me being like, this month, I'm in this year, this is my overall theme for the year, and this is my, month thing. I got so much benefit, and I was able to navigate it smoother. So 100% I recommend everyone like making notes of like these challenges, because then and you can navigate it more smoother and learn the lessons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you have a chart and you actually have your birth chart with it too, being able to get that additional information about who you are, not that you aren't well versed in who you are, you're with yourself all the time, but to be able to know your expression, those natural innate tools and your soul urge, and being able to see those with your life path and then be able to integrate all of that information, it really can make you a powerhouse.
Now, I know you said because you're a 5 life path, the 5 is extra for what you said with the 5. Would that go for everyone?
Constructive free.
Life path? So I'm a 33, so I'm a 6.
6.
So my whole life is essentially about responsibilities and like not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yes.
Because I
Yes,
definitely don't like shy away from responsibility. I would definitely be the more of like, don't take responsibility. So my whole
sure.
life is not my circus, not my monkeys.
Well, the thing with the sixth life path is that you would have the tendency to really want to beautify the environment that not only you are in, but that those you care about are in. So very big on a beautiful environment in an office space, in a home space. Um, Anywhere that you are going to gather those of your community, your friends and family, and your coworkers, if you were in that environment. It would be really important to you that it be very welcoming.
This makes
Hmm.
sense. I thought it was always my Taurus moon who really needed the environment to be
Hmm. Yeah.
like that. And apparently maybe it is also that, but it's also my sixth life path who also needs that.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah, it'll
crazy
probably
how there's
amplify it.
overlap. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, go
there'll
ahead.
be an overlap. Yep, absolutely. And then you would have probably had to really learn boundaries. Like, not that everybody doesn't have to, but yours, it would have been a lot more front and center. Like, you would have dealt with it from a very young age instead of like many that don't have to until they start getting into those like independent years where, the preteen, teen, and up. You would have probably dealt with it in more of the single digits. You would have seen it and been very aware of it and felt it. Mhm.
Now, does age, like the number of like your actual age, have anything to do numerologically? Does that like have any impact, or is it only like your personal year or your life path, or like is the number age you are? Do those numbers have any kind of influence on anything?
No, no. The just the age that you are doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it. There are some that I've done little series on angel numbers before, and I've spoken to the fact that angel numbers can be anything that really mean a lot to you,
Mm-hmm.
that are sentimental. Like mine, I see 212 all the time, and that's my birth date. And it just so happens that it adds up to a 5, which is my life path. So for me, and that's not how everybody's birthday is, but for me, it's an angel number. So if say you had a real connection to the number, 44, well,
Yeah.
maybe your 44th year would mean something more to you because it was like your personal angel number, but that wouldn't necessarily change the year. It would just define a little bit more meaning to you personally.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because I was wondering, because I'm like, ooh, I'm in a 3 year and I'm turning 33, and my life path is a 33, which is like six. I'm like, 3, 3. I'm
Yeah.
like, is there something like I feel like when I turn 33, there's going to be something. Is that like
Yeah.
maybe just I know something, or do you think numerologically, third year, turning 33, master life number 33, like all of that kind of go
I
together?
think in that instance, I think that is an opportunity for a lot of very meaningful numbers for you to come together, and you will be able to do with it what you want.
I will
Because
report
and
back.
there's some aspect of placebo when you're talking about that in particular, because
Yeah.
that's not where the chart or anything comes from. So yeah, so you can do a lot with your own personal meanings and connections to it.
Yeah. So we were in an 8 year this year, and we talked all about that in the last episode. Now we're going into a 9 year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go into what that means as a collective 9 year. I'm guessing it's like you said something about don't be selfish. So I'm guessing people should not be selfish next year. And also, like, isn't it
Yeah.
end of cycles too with like a 9, like completion? Run us through like the
Yeah.
numerological forecast for 2025.
So I really think, today we're recording on the day that Pluto is going into Aquarius.
No coincidence.
It is not a coincidence. Um, so everyone is talking about how this is such a huge shift to a focus on humanity.
Mm.
And I find it very interesting that it is coinciding with a 9 year, which is about humanitarianism. It hits all of our humanity. Coming in out of a year where it was about power, the constructive use of it, the kindness of power, and the selfishness of power, right? So that's what happens in those years. going into a 9, those that were building power truly from a kind heart and what is the best for all? What can I make happen for all? Like that bigger, grander. Those are those that are going to see a lot of growth, a lot of progress in the 9 year. Now there may be some tag-alongs that like some people get on the shirt tails, so to speak, of that. But those who really have that selfish power heart are going to struggle in a 9 year because it's not about what's in it for them. So when they're going about it that way, it may appear from time to time that they're getting all of the kudos, but the cookie crumbles. The cookie crumbles. That's all that there is to it. So we'll see really where we are universally by the time we start heading into the 1 year, because new beginnings require solid closures. You can't really have a healthy new relationship with someone if you don't break up with the last one. Like you have to cut ties before you can move on in many instances. So I look at this universally as a very transitional year. So we'll see where we're at.
So potentially a lot of like endings, maybe breakups, divorces, or businesses going a different way, like cycles
Yeah.
essentially closing from the last 8 years. No, right? Because isn't not like nine's is it
Yes.
accumulation of 8 years? Okay.
Well, it's a nine year cycle. So you just don't know what everybody is carrying that was unlearned from another cycle. So just like you layer on month to month, because we're meant to evolve, you also layer on year to year. And there is a bit of a universal influence on there. But when I look at the years, if I wanted to be able to forecast potential like breakups and what things are going to be focused on, I would really want someone to look at their actual personal year, because for me, when I track how might the universal year impact me in my own personal year, I would really only look at particular months where there is a strong woven correlation. So let me give you an example. If I was in a year that had, say, a 5 month and a 9, like a 5 personal month and a 9 universal month that aligned in the same time frame, I would pay particular attention to that, because you have closures and endings, and you also have my personal aspect of change. So do I want to be the change maker, or do I want to put my head down and allow myself to be oblivious and have change happen to me? So that's really more where I look at the universal to personal year. When I think of universal, literally universal, I think of the big spotlights, governments, huge companies, big company, like things that are sort of their own entity in and of themselves. I look at those.
So with the ending, then potentially we could see deconstruction of some big
Yeah,
entities, the ones that aren't, like you said, coming from the right places of power,
correct.
and then the ones that are kind of rising up.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see what they do with it. with all of those big powers, what they do with it, because there's opportunity. So they may come out just shining and smelling pretty, and they may have not learned everything that they need to. And if they didn't, then onward with the new whole cycle of the one, and it starts again to see how far we could go. So yeah.
So do you find with all of like the numbers and everything, and I know last episode we spoke about the big misconception about like 8's just about abundance, and I remember you blew my mind with that.
Yeah.
Do you find there are any other like big misconceptions
Mhm.
with numerology or with certain numbers that
Yeah.
people tend to think like, oh yeah, the 8's just like money, 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 and it's like,
Yeah, sixes and
are there other
fives.
like, okay,
Sixes and fives are really those are the ones that I feel don't get the proper attention because everyone looks at that 5, like we had just talked about, like, oh, it's change. It's when you move. It's when you do, it's that aspect. But I've used the example before that if you happen to know someone who's really a nomad, okay, and wherever they are happens to be their home, it's the backpack and the suitcase, and here we go. They have to have a level of responsibility, like structured responsibility, to have that kind of freedom. And people don't think about, what does freedom really mean? Like, and that can come in so many different avenues. That could be structured schedule at a regular corporate office job that enables you to do other things that give you joy, right? It could be nomading. It could be making sure that you take a new class every quarter. You're going to take pottery. You're going to do painting. You want to be able to express yourself. It could be a host of things. It's not to be limited to just move or travel. And so I think that we don't really give it the broad vision that it could. And then, of course, the 6 years, everyone's like, oh, that's your partnership with responsibilities and family and marriage. It's the time to get married. It's the time to have a baby. It's the time to start the new career. And I've said, I'm like, y'all, I met my ex-husband in a 5-year. I got married in a 6-year. And let me tell you, it was a full body no from like the get-go. And I did it anyway because I wanted it to be my story. That's how it's an example that I use about how I really made the numbers mean what I wanted them to mean, because I was in a very unhealed space in my life at that time. So it was beautiful timing for him. It was terrible timing for me. And I didn't really respect that 6 year was not meant for me to get married. It was for me to set a boundary and be responsible to self before all others. And so there we were. And by the time I was going through, my first little Saturn return, I was divorcing. So you can really, like with anything, astrology, you could make it mean what you want. Numbers, you can make it mean what you want. But
I like
yeah,
what you said, because I feel like even with the 8 case, both of them are kind of like focusing on like the glitzy glam of the number
yeah,
and sweeping anything that kind of doesn't fit with like
mhm,
magic, love, light, money, like under
yeah,
the rug. Like, no, I'm not gonna look at that. No, it's just about money. Ooh, money
yeah,
come to me. But you're not like, ooh, moving, change. It's like not looking at like that deeper or that depth.
yeah,
And it's funny. I've never actually thought of 5 just as travel or moving. To me, like it's
yeah.
always been change, but not necessarily like the
Mhm.
glitzy glam
Yeah,
change.
and change, new people, new things. But yeah, you're right. And look at how many people have such money challenges
So this is like, I'm
and
so glad we're
abundance
seeing.
challenges, like as a whole, abundance challenges as a whole. And they come into this 8 year and they're like, here it's going to happen. And that's when they lose the job, they lose the investment, they lose the partner that was their security. There's all sorts of things that can happen in an 8 year that are not notoriously spoken of in an 8 year. Yeah.
I love that you're illuminating this in some of like the, I don't know if we call them challenges, shadows, whatever aspects of the number, because I don't think they're talked about enough. And then I
Mhm.
think people think, oh, numerology, like they think about it in this, I don't want to say like, it is surface level, but kind of
Yeah.
like
It's a
there's so
little
much more
dreamy.
depth to it. There's so
Yeah.
much more like, no, like when you get
Yeah.
into like the grid of that number,
Mhm.
it's like
It's not just
it's
oil on
hard to
top of the
believe it's
water.
not light. It's not
No.
love and light, all of it.
No, no. I've, just what I had said was like, it's not oil on the water. Like that's what we look at. We look at this beautiful little shimmery reflection of it. But there's a lot of water underneath. There's a lot of depth underneath it. And, that's why, when I tell people, I'm like, look, your birth chart, it's just not about just these handful of numbers, these core 4, like they integrate into so many different other modalities for understanding numerologically. I hear every single time, oh my gosh, this so aligns with my astrology. Oh my gosh, this is what my human design is. Oh, that's what like it can give you such a deeper empowerment of who you are. And I've talked about it a lot where, you're the most important relationship you're ever going to have.
Yep.
No one is ever going to be with you as much as you. Okay. So you should know you better than anyone, so that when you are making your decisions, the big ones, the small ones, you know that you're making them in your own voice and aligned best for you. And it's worth getting to know yourself, because a lot of people I know who have the charts done, they're like, oh, it can, one, be very validating. They just thought that it was something that they maybe created or learned. I'm like, nope, this was innate. And let's talk about how you've integrated it. And they start seeing and making connections about how, oh, like with you, with your Taurus, it's like, oh, that's like, it empowers other aspects of who I am. Yeah.
So, well, I have two questions. The first one is,
Yeah.
how would you say, let's take like the five, or well, let's do the six example, maybe. Either one. How can someone know, all right, let's say they're either seeing six, and I know you said there's also personal, but sometimes I do
Yes.
feel like I see angel numbers because like
Yes.
I need to know the energy of that number. If someone doesn't know, how would I know, oh, is it like I need to change something, or I need to like, oh, I'm going to get married, like relationships, or is it like the deeper, more challenge? Like, is there a way you can recommend people like, oh, I see an eight. That's not necessarily means money's flowing in. That means I need to look at power. How
Yeah.
would you decipher like which aspect of the number
Which
that you
aspect?
think it's gonna like it's trying to signal to you?
Well, first and foremost, you have to be pretty centered in self so that you can have an awareness of where you're at. And sometimes it's as simple as what you're doing in the moment. And sometimes it's that you know what is looming as a decision within you. So sometimes it's a broader angel number nudge, and sometimes it's a in the moment nudge. So let me think of a couple of examples here. So I work in a regular corporate kind of environment. I coach, I train, paper pusher in a lot of ways as well. Very structured, organized. If I am just rocking away at just the corporate job and I'm feeling irritation coming up, and I might be in a groove and being very efficient and productive. And it's rare that I'm not. I just kind of have to, and I'm good at it. But if I was to be feeling it and I happen to see that it was 222, I'm like, 2 being the number of cooperation, flow, and synchronicity. But 2 plus 2 plus 2 is a 6, which is responsibilities. Am I pushing to like make a bunch of stuff happen that I really should have been delegating? That's how I would see the number in a moment. I would like, okay, what am I trying to do? What have I taken on? And this is why I'm irritated, because I know deep down, I'm not supposed to be doing this. This needs to be for that other person. I don't need to be doing it. So of course my body's like, check yourself, girl, right? And it shows itself that way. If
I love it.
I,
Now I'm gonna think of this
yeah,
now when I see 222 because that's one I see sometimes, and so now I'm gonna think of that when I'm working. Is like, oh, isn't it also balance?
it's balance. It's balance because that's what responsibility is. That's what boundaries are. It's proper balance of things. Who's in charge of what, right? So it might be, if you were to see it, it might be like, okay, yes, am I doing something that someone else needs to do? Or am I doing this at a time where creatively I'm not in this flow state? Like, I know that this is what is my responsibility, but am I in the right head for this? Because it needs to be, it doesn't have to have force, because a 2 is not about making it happen. So it could be one of those questions, but you have to be able to be really dedicated to your own presence to know what might the universe be trying to tell you. you know?
Now, would you always add them up? Like if you had 444, would you then add that up to 12 and that's also a 3? So you would tie like work the plan with also how you're communicating?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. For
Following
me,
along.
it puts it in better perspective. So it might be just a 4 moment, and I know that it's like the shallow end of the pool. Okay. It could just be, yeah, I need to buckle down. I'm talking to my coworker too much. I'm not getting my stuff done. I need to turn my back on the chatter and get to work. But if I'm already doing that and I'm already anchored down and focused, it might mean something else. So in that case, it's like, okay, wait, 444. So that's a 12. It's a 3. Am I working on something that enables me to really well communicate? Am I using my flow for this? Am I really creatively moving through it? And you can creatively flow through bookkeeping. You could creatively flow through a lot of things, right? So it might mean that in that moment. So yeah, there's a shallow end and a deep end.
So then with 555, that's 50 and 60, oh, 6.
Mm-hmm.
That's responsibility. So change responsibilities. So if
Yeah.
I see 555 when I'm emptying the dishwasher, does that mean I should change her? I should not take responsibility for emptying the dishwasher?
No. You can just no, you can tell your fiance that absolutely I said no, that you're still supposed to be emptying the dishwasher. No, but I will tell you that what in that moment, it would be a moment of grace for me because you've constructed a life that gives you certain freedoms. And
Mm.
one of those was the fact that you're taking care and loving on your home. And emptying the dishwasher, albeit most people are not going to look at that as loving on your home, but it is. It's loving on your home and loving on your love. You're putting up dishes and you're structuring, like it's creating beauty. So
I
for
love
me, I would see it as a moment of grace.
That's funny. I love how you combine the number. Now I'm gonna start doing that and
Mhm.
really like leveraging those numbers
Yeah.
even deeper.
Yeah. It gives you another perspective, you know? Yeah. There's
So
always like looking through the front window and there's a reason for the rear view. So, yeah.
now when it comes to numerology in business,
Mm-hmm.
how should we be conscious to using those in, and I think we touched on this in like more of like a, oh, should I launch in like a personal, like in an 8 month whatever last time, but in terms of even like your year or the month and or like even pricing, like I use angel number pricing not
Yeah.
because I know the two means this, but I like angel numbers, but am I like, should I not be, because maybe those numbers mean something that maybe
No.
I wouldn't want to convey with
Well,
that offer or
first
something?
off, yeah, so I price with it too, but it's more, mine aren't always like, they don't always appear as angel numbers. Like my numerology chart read is an angel number straight up, but my other ones don't. But what they reduce to means something to me.
So should I
So
be conscious of that? Like should I always make sure what it reduces to is
you don't
in
need
line?
to per se if you're not necessarily called to. I will say that I'm always very conscious of potential karmic numbers. So the energetics of the 13, which could be a little bit more restrictive, a 14 and a 19 can have more of a nervous tension to it. So almost like static in the field. So I tend to shy away from those. That's also based upon my real deep connection with numerology. So, you know, what we really embody tends to impact us more too.
Now, do you mean having 14 and 19 within the number or by itself?
What it reduces to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd have to add it all up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't 19 reduce to 20, which is a 2? Like, or how does it?
19 is a 10. So 1 plus 9 is a 10 is a 1. So that's why I
Oh,
say it's a 19 1. You could have something that was literally just ends in 100 and that's a 1 as well, but it's a different frequency of a 1.
do you think then, like, with that, you could choose something that was representative of matching it with that thing and that
with
that
the
it's
intention.
serving.
Yep. Yep.
So like I have a power program. If my pricing reduced to an 8, that would be
Hmm.
vibes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like with
Very
my
cool.
numerology, it reduces to a 6. And I really feel that we all have a responsibility to self to really know who we are. And so it aligns with me for that, with that intention. Hmm.
Okay. I like
Absolutely. And you can get, you can go as deep as you really want because, people name businesses, they name their LLC. Those names have an energetic to them. Once you give a name to anything, it has an energetic, period. So is it aligned? It could be a tweak of a letter that could
Mm-hmm.
change an entire energetic. It might be worth it. It might not, depending on what it is and what the number is and what the
I
business
think
is
it's such
about.
a deep rabbit hole because you could do like you could think about the day, the name, the time you launch it, the time of your
Hmm.
calls, the pricing, like the actual
Yeah.
hours, what it reduces to, the number of modules, like
Yeah.
oh my god.
You could get into a huge minutia. Like you could really get into some numerological weeds. I've never gone that deep with it. I mean, when I launched my website, when I filed my LLC, I paid attention to those dates as like if they were a life path, what would they be? I paid attention to that. I didn't think about the time or anything. And what was really odd is that I'm a 5/1 manifesting generator. Aspects of my business are as well. Almost actually every aspect of my business, regardless of what it was, landed as an MG,
That's
which was
interesting.
very weird.
Oh my
And
god.
I didn't really know about human design at that point. I had little bits of nuggets, but I didn't know enough to have thought about it. I was just looking at the numbers. So yeah.
Oh, now I need to do my LLC. Do you add LLC? Would you add
Mm-mm.
LLC to the
Just the
name?
name. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, just the actual name. Like my LLC happens to be the Tiffany Dawn, just the same as my IG and I'm just like streamlined. Um, so yeah,
oh, now I gotta do mine. I gotta figure out
just
what
to
I
kind
got
of
my
see,
LLC.
and it's interesting because regardless of what it is, that's the energetic you're aligned to when you were at that season of life. So it's also nice to be able to look at that too.
I love this. So interesting. I
Hmm.
find numbers so
Yeah,
interesting. I think it's
yeah,
because numbers are like they're concrete. Like other things are concrete, but like numbers are like everywhere all the time. Like everything is made up of
yeah.
numbers.
The new, being able to really have a good personal language with numerology does make life more fun because it is everywhere. I mean, you're not turning corners and seeing Virgo, I mean, you're
Yeah.
just not really like seeing things like that, but you can turn a corner and see 6 6, 333. You can see all these little signs. So yeah, it's a lot more fun. You can really connect with your own inner voice and your guides and keep yourself on the right path, keep yourself in check, give yourself pause, give yourself a kick. You can do a lot with it. And I
I
tell people, learning the numbers is the first thing. That's your foundation. When you learn any language, you're going to learn your adjectives and your verbs and how to put a sentence together, and you're just going to kind of learn the basics. And once you start really learning the language, that's where you start learning the slang. You start learning like the little shortcuts to saying certain things and phrases and, um, just little cultural one-offs. And that's the same thing with numbers. That's how I say, yeah, there's angel numbers, but then you can go deeper with the angel number. And you may have an angel number like me that's 212. Not a typical angel number, but it sure means something to me. That's my own language. And so being able to do it that way, it enables you to really have a strong, very personalized tool to navigate whatever.
And I feel like we're just scratching the surface. Like what we've taught, like
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about the overarching in the first episode, the soul urge and all that, but I know we're just scratching the surface of like the depths you can go with
Yeah.
numerologically. Again, that word today.
Well,
Um, so, go ahead.
something, I'm so sorry, I was interrupting. No, something else that I do that nobody else does is that I incorporate my mind, body, spirit release with numerology. And so when I look at, say, a personal month, I can create an intention based on what that month is kind of designed to be about. And I can uncover and eliminate blocks to the potentials in that month. And so that's very personal too. Sure, you can do it generically, but I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it for, so of course it's going to be very personal. But I've integrated those two modalities. And I am having a lot of fun with it because it is really remarkable things that have come up, things that I've done all sorts of personal work on in so many different angles of work over the course of years. And to have some sort of nugget that comes up and it can just take my breath away to say, oh, for real? Like, that's still lingering and it's lingering in this manner. Like, what is going on? And then I can eliminate it so that it doesn't have to be, a weight in my backpack.
Yeah, so like it kind of gives you, it amplifies the roadmap, if you will, and it just gives you
Yeah.
like more of that information to pull from.
Yes. Yeah. You can
So
see
things that
where
are
some
like
personal blocks are.
already going on, like things that like this is probably already somewhat in your field and your energy based on like your chart, your this, your month, your all your
Yes.
solar, but all your numbers that you read for people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. Because like you would know what you're working on, right? So you know right now that you're in a 3-year and you're in a 5-month. So going into, if you knew you had something you were going to be working on and wanting to do next month in a 6-month, and you're really aligned and it's feeling good and grooved, it feels all aligned. But if you wanted to know, is there anything that I am not aware of that could present a hurdle, then you can create an intention that is more customed for you, what you are working on for your 6 month, and you can clear and find out what blocks happen to be there. It can be limiting beliefs, limiting emotions, spiritual blocks, energetic blocks of all sorts. It can be within your body. It can be, purely energetic. And then you can eliminate those so that ahead of the game, things that you might have dealt with then, you can just eliminate.
Could you also do this for a personal year? So
Yeah.
I'm going into a 4-year work the
Yep.
plan.
Yes.
Technically, I could come like, is there anything that would be a hurdle or preventing me from like working the plan? I
Yeah.
know it's a whole year, but like
Yeah, but it's a
overall, we could dive
concept.
into that.
Yeah, it is. It's a concept of saying, okay, look, I can deal with the months as they come, but for the concept of the overall month, do I have any blocks to that? So let me just give an example on this just from an outside perspective, like armchair, you move really quick. You move quick. And that's fine and that's good because you're really decisive and you're in flow, right? And a 4 can be about speed. But a lot of times we have speed associated with shortcuts. So is there any part of you that you aren't aware of that may have some resistance to some aspect of it because it feels like you're cheating? Like, so that could be something that someone may want to work on. Do I feel that that would be an issue for you? No, I do not. But you're being an easy example right now, being going into the 6, or going into the 4-year, because a lot of people really do feel like work should be hard. Attaining your goals, unless you have to work hard for them, they're not really worth going after. Well, but then consciously they don't have those beliefs, but somewhere in them they do. So innately, those people, how are they supposed to address what they're not even aware of?
Yeah.
And I can utilize the mind body spirit release to bring up those things that your body has. It's a subconscious clearing because that's where we really operate. You do your rewiring, you have your rapid rewire. That's very kin to being able to let go of things that are deep, deep within, that we've so integrated that we might not even be aware that it's integrated. And so
Yeah. And
even
I
the
also
people who are even the people who are really doing the work are missing something because they aren't aware.
or where like there's always levels, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like maybe you didn't have that belief up into a level, but this new level, like, oh, that
Yes.
belief would kick in next.
Yes, there's an onion peel factor to it. And the cool thing with it is that you'll never clear the same thing twice. You will clear maybe something that is that energetic, but not related to the same issue, So, yeah,
This
it's
is
very interesting. So, yes, going into a new year, you could see, do I have general resistance to what the year's potential energetic is about? And get rid of it. So you can navigate your months better. Feel a little bit more open, liberated.
I'm very into numerology right now. I feel like you're just like this came at a perfect time. Like this is just like what you're speaking. I'm just like, yes, I'm absorbing. Like, yes, this all sounds like. Yeah, I know some people are like into gene keys or whatever. I'm like, that seems like a lot of information.
Oh,
For
I
sure.
know.
And
I'm a
numbers
little
to me,
intimidated by all those. Yeah.
they're soothing. To me, numerology is just like it's like a warm bath. When you understand these numbers, I'm just like, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So where
Yeah.
can people find you? I look forward to your monthly forecast like every month. I'm like, it's the first. I log on to Tiffany and like you're the only like person I seek out like numerological information. I'm like, what's my
Oh,
forecast? And then
that's
I
great.
think of you all month long, like work the plan or do this or like so where can people find you? Let us
Yeah.
know everything about you because I'm sure
Okay.
people are gonna want to.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. The Tiffany Dawn on IG, thetiffanydawn.com is my website. So you can go through, I've just got some basic little links and see all my favorite things, learn more about me, all the modalities that I do. Obviously, you can DM me anytime. And it is a really good time. I have an Etsy store as well that has a journal, a numerology journal in there. If anybody wanted to be able to it's a quick, immediate gratification PDF download for $15. It has 3 prompts for every single month. So something to launch the month, a check-in, and a reflection so that you can learn a little bit how you navigate through your personal months. As a holiday deal. So coming up here within about a week. So we're recording before Thanksgiving here in the States anyway. I will be advertising the fact that everybody who books their numerology consults for their birth chart will get another $215 worth of bonuses. They'll get the journal and they will also get a forecast of their 12 months for that next year, broken down specifically for their life path. So that way you can have it, you can have the journal, and you have your chart.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I'll have all of that. And then, with the mind body spirit release and a high, even I do one-offs and I also have package deals. So, just as well as anybody that it's spiritual maintenance and self-discovery is not a one-off. So, personal growth is ongoing.
Always more layers.
Yeah, we're always evolving. So for those who are really dedicated, you can also, book 3 or 6 and, we can meet up from time to time. So yeah, all the things.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please check out Tiffany. She's incredible. I cannot wait. I need to dive further into my numbers. I feel like this was divine timing today. The year ahead, I'm like, something's like nudging at me. Check her out. Let us know how you love this episode, what lands for you. Like I said, I took notes from the last one and it helped me all year long. So at least take notes from this. If you don't go further, take notes and let us know how applying your numerology changes your life, your business, and allows you to live beyond limits. Oh, look.
Yes.
I had that in. I didn't plan that.
Look at that. Look at that.
Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.